Good evening, dear friends. Welcome, dear Sister Oya.
Welcome to all. And welcome home, Tülin.
Yes, I am back to your time zone. Last week there was a 2 hours time difference between us, but still we had met and worked together.
Yes, and now today, we are together again at the same time zone. We will continue going deeper into the topic of time. Well, this topic evokes so many questions that can be approached from many angles, yet in this series we intend to study the topic of time within the framework established by the knowledge we read in the divine order and the universe. And we read in this book that we will feel that time gets increasingly faster because of the intensity and increase of the events in our life, not only individually but also communally. And we already are feeling it, aren't we? We experience this increase. We experience this acceleration of time. And of course, this feeling or perception may change from person to person. For example, I say time goes faster, but my friends from Istanbul say that time goes a little bit slower in Izmir. Things are more relaxed. What about you, dear friends? How do you feel or perceive time's passing? And also, time flew again, and this is our last video with Tülin. We completed a whole month again. But I will be watching the new videos in this series, so we will be still together.
Yes, a new commentator, Mr. Bülent Konther, will join me next week. I am sure we will have a wonderful month together. Before we start reading, if you are a newcomer to this series, I'd like to remind you to watch the previous videos, or read the whole book first, otherwise things may be confusing for you. Yes, let's start reading. In order to conclude the knowledge about the superficial and perceptual time, we need to explain these two time comprehensions by comparing them relative to the original time in universe. We will give this knowledge upon diagrams as well. In figure 4, the line A to B is the original time which traverses universe. The drawing A shows the flow of superficial time on original time, and the drawing B shows spherical time. Superficial time, as seen in the drawing, revolves around a point, x, of the flow of the original time and draws a spiral with its periods. Regardless of the numbers of periods, this spiral does not abandon the point, x, on the original time, it extends while it remains at its place. Therefore, in the time reality, A, which shows the duration of a lifetime, there is no advance and flow on the original time. However, there is the application of the realities of a single point, x, on original time, and as we have shown in the previous diagrams, this can continue at a few or all periods of superficial time. On the other hand, when the drawing B is studied, the cross-section of 3 concentric circles are seen, indicated by the numbers 1, 2, and 3. These spheres should not be considered 3 separate circles within each other. This shows the 3 stages of the first sphere's growth, that is, the smallest one at the center, by expanding in all directions. 4. The development of the spherical time occurs not in the form of a spiral's extending and contracting in one direction upon a surface but of the sphere's growth, that is, expanding from its center towards all directions at the same time. For example, here the sphere numbered 1 shows a stage of its smallest states. The sphere numbered 2 is one of its further, widened stages, and the sphere numbered 3 is its widest stage. So, perceptual time develops in this way. When this development is compared to superficial time on the flow of original time, A, B, it is seen here that while perceptual time, that is, spherical time, as has been in the state of the first sphere, takes the part, C, D, on the flow of original time into its scope. When this sphere takes its size numbered 2 as its comprehension develops, advances on the flow of original time and occupies the part, E, F, when it gets wider and enters the state of the sphere numbered 3, it traverses the part, G, H, on the flow of original time. Therefore, although the development of superficial time comprehension does not progress at all and remains at one point on the flow of original time, each developmental moment of spherical time comprehension is together with the advance on the flow of original time. Because of this, The real evolution starts from the superworld plan of duty where perceptual time prevails. Indeed, millions times of a result which could hardly be attained by spending enormous efforts as a necessity of world life can be attained in exchange for the smallest effort in the superworld realms.
Yes, another passage that expounds the topic very well. Now we see the representations of the superficial time, the perceptual time and the original time together in this new figure. As you see, at the line of the original time, let me hold this piece of paper vertically to express the cross-section of a lifetime at the superficial time. Yes, as the original time goes through this plane, we are at this point X. I mean, we are experiencing life at this point X of the original time, a lifetime we live in cycles of a spiral at the superficial time. And this is a cross-section of a single lifetime. Yet, for expressing the spherical or perceptual time, we see these spheres in the figure. The circles of the spiral in the superficial time are expressed as an ever-growing sphere, getting developed outwardly as the comprehension gets developed or widened. So, when we pass to the spherical time, we will have the capacity of moving on the original time. But of course, this is not a state possible for our physical bodily existence. Right now, we are only in touch with the original time at a single point X, no matter how many lifetimes we live and how many experiences we have. Only when we reach that field where the scope of the comprehension vastly expands, then we can become able to experience the spherical time. As we read in this passage, the real evolution starts from the superworld plan of duty where perceptual time prevails. And as expressed in this passage, in this world, we are spending enormous efforts to reach a result but still it can hardly be attained. And this is a necessity of world life. However, in the superworld realms such a result can be attained by spending smallest effort. At that point X, a spiral opens, and as we live our lifetime and as we continue learning and experiencing, we make efforts to actualize the abilities and talents outlined in our life plan. And at the superficial time this spiral makes various turns and widens. This state of our physical existence in the world manifests at the spherical time as ever-growing spheres of comprehension, and eventually, when we, as beings, complete the human stage by widening our comprehension sufficient for reaching the initial steps of the plan of duty, then the result of all those efforts spent at the developmental stages of our being will be rewarding. And this is the destined destination for all beings, for who knows how many lifetimes, our being has focused on this purpose. Of course, we never forget the necessity of spending much more efforts for having any result, because we are now in this world, we have our physical body, but still, this description of the superworld realms may motivate us for spending more efforts.
As we read in this passage, the real evolution starts from the superworld plan of duty where perceptual time prevails. And at the initial steps of the plan of duty, beings take duties as the being in duty or a guardian or guiding being to a living person. I mean, when as beings we reach the stage of a being in duty, we don't take duties right away such as governing a planet or a galaxy. First, the beings gradually start from the initial steps of the plan of duty. And as the beings widen their comprehension more and more, their individual traits gradually vanish, and they become members of a group or organizations in the plan of duty, and then, they become involved in governing a planet, a solar system, a star, a galaxy. And such vast and immense governance becomes possible when the unity of comprehensions within an organization that expand infinitely at every direction in the plan of duty. And we can detect the vast scope of this when we think about even a single being in duty that assumed the duty of becoming a guiding being for another being that needs to go through 500 to 700 human lifetimes until the completion of human stage. And imagine the spherical comprehension of such a guiding being that will support a being's destined individual plan by mastering the past, present and future states of its bodily existence. The divine order and the universe gives us an intuition about the vast and immense expanse of the comprehension of such beings. And, as you said, we may be now in the superficial time, but we are destined to reach the spherical time comprehension on our developmental journey.
This structure points that there is a hierarchical order in those higher realms, as well. I mean, we don't jump from stage to stage. Or we can't attend college right after we graduate from the elementary school. Progress is gradual. The unity of comprehensions widens gradually as individual comprehensions widen in tandem, and then, the system expands by groupings, by organizations, etc. Still, the importance of making efforts in line with our individual plans is obvious, because we know very well that help is always available. And sometimes, as a result of our hard work, an intervention happens and we feel that something becomes wider, spacious, either time in our hands or some inner feeling. I think, this is how we feel the widening of our comprehension. Sometimes this happens in our dreams. Within a very short period of time, within a moment, we solve and resolve many inner problems or conflicts, because our daily consciousness is at rest. Consequently, our consciousness is free of the superficial time. I think at such moments we are in touch with the time comprehension of our being, that is, the spherical time.
You know, each week in our series, we read at best only 4 or 5 pages from the divine order and the universe. Let's imagine that we commentators and you the audience are in the spherical time, and the entirety of what I want to say or what I imagine in my mind's eye are instantly transmitted to you telepathically, and received by you without getting warped or altered and understood completely. Would such a state advance us faster? Of course. Yet, we are in this world and bound by the necessities of the superficial time comprehension, and because of this, we show you shapes, graphics, figures, as we talk. We refer to previous concepts and explanations. As we move to new concepts, we summarize the previous ones again and again. And as a result, many friends say that, oh, my brain is on fire. I didn't understand what you mean by this or that. Or, after this video ends, what will remain with us? Sometimes, nothing. After all, the human memory system has a capacity, and the efficiency of such moments of widened comprehension you mentioned weakens as time goes. Yet, this gradual system of the superficial time is best for the bodies our being builds from the cruder matter combinations of the hydrogen realm, because it allows the bodies, yes I mean our bodies, as well. It allows the bodies to learn the vast spectrum of the sensations, feelings and emotions within myriad experiences in lifetimes. So, none of these different time perceptions is better than others. Each is perfect in accordance of the varying developmental levels of the beings. When we complete this human stage, we will be at a level of comprehension for utilizing much subtler matter combinations, and we will have a wider time perception. Yes, let's continue reading. As we can more or less easily explain time in diagrams, we need to elaborate as well on space, which depends on it. For, when space does not exist, the presence of time, that is, its manifestation in universes, cannot be possible. For the flow of original time in the universe to manifest in cosmoses, the concept of space is needed, which is suitable to the structures of those cosmoses. In other words, the explanation of the mechanism of time needs the material milieu and variations of matter. Therefore, unless the concepts of time and space are not joined, neither time nor space can manifest in cosmoses. We will explain this truth later in detail. So, since superficial and perceptual times are distinct from another with great differences, as we explained above, then spaces belonging to the world and to the superworld, which rigidly depend on time comprehensions, should be as much as different from another.
Yes, in this passage we read about two inseparable structures. Time without space and space without time don't exist. Since we cannot think ourselves free of time and space, I do like to repeat my observation about different flow of time in different cities. I had mentioned the difference between Istanbul and Izmir. Yet I observe those kinds of differences among different neighborhoods in one city, as well. Downtown or city centers are hectic, crowded, and have a fast pace in comparison of the outer parts of Izmir where things are more laid off, relaxed, and even slow. I am sure that our dear friends have such observations, as well. Of course, space and time are closely related with motion, as we will read soon in the following passages. In this passage, we read that this structuring is valid since the beginning of the universe, so, we can think of the current complexity level of matter universe we can observe and measure is the result of that initial motion, that started at the amorphous matter by the arrival of the original influence, and of the following expansion of this motion in ever-changing spatial and temporal vibrations.
We read here cosmoses. Now we are in the hydrogen cosmos. And as our dear friends remember or can watch at the previous videos, we had read and discussed the initial processes and stages of the hydrogen cosmos, about how the atom emerged and how the being is built by the spirit, and all those stages the bodies the being built had experienced, etc. You can read the book or watch the videos in this series anytime to learn about these. Now, we read here that for the flow of original time in the universe to manifest in cosmoses, the concept of space is needed, which is suitable to the structures of those cosmoses. Other cosmoses, other material structures in the universe. We can conclude that time perception differs for such cosmoses as well. Indeed, even within our solar system, let's say in Mars, gravity is different. One rotation of Mars around our star is different than our planet, and all those material combinations in Mars have a different magnetic field, etc. So, time with its inseparable companions, that are space and motion, works different even in a neighbor planet in our solar system which is in the hydrogen cosmos. So please try to imagine how these can be different in other cosmoses. As it is emphasized in this passage, as the subtlety of matter increase, perceptions of time changes accordingly. And from the knowledge we read so far in this book, matter gets developed as comprehension gets wider. As the possibilities of matter increase, space and time perception change accordingly. These concepts are inseparable now. As we read on, things will become clearer. Now, let us explain the space belonging to spherical time. Space is an expression of the imperative of matter to localize its various components. Let us explain this expression according to both time realities. First of all, let us point that if the explanations here are not to be applied on any object but to be imagined as described, understanding the topic of space becomes easier. Let us explain first the space in superficial time. For the periods to occur in superficial time, three conditions must occur. First, a material milieu. This milieu is not the space, in order to establish the passing of flow of time and periods. Second, the motion for the constitution of these periods and for the flow of time. And third, binding of the motion to that milieu in order to appreciate the occurrence of motion and establishment of the periods. So, this is the space for superficial time. Therefore, after gathering the above conditions together, it is necessary to define and accept superficial time-space as such, in order to establish and appreciate the flow direction of a motion to occur in a spiral direction and the beginning and ending points of certain periods. The binding of a material milieu to that motion puts into effect superficial time-space. Here, the term of milieu is not a space, it only expresses the non-localized matter components. That is, there are matter components but not their localization, in other words, not their positions, which can be relative to each other. The effectuation of this localization, the constitution of the space, entails the binding of those components to a motion, as we have said above. Therefore, time and space are inseparable. This is such an occurrence that, as we will explain further, the manifestations of two great principles, which are connected to the original principle, manifest according to the various cosmoses of universe and adapt those cosmoses, with all of their events, realities and comprehensions, to themselves. In comparison with a body, we express superficial time-space as such. The connection of the motions of the body with matter and the value of matter in these connections brings about the whole of space. We will make clear this apparently vague expression with an example. Imagine a stone thrown in the air. First of all, here there is the motion of stone and there is the period character that can be expressed by the beginning and ending points of this motion, this is the first condition. Afterwards, there is the need for the milieu in the air, which allows the establishment and appreciation of the motion and the period points, this is the second condition. Finally, there is the comparison or relation of this motion and of the period points to the milieu, this is the third condition. Thus, the stone's motion in the air which manifests through these three conditions puts into effect the space particular to superficial time comprehension. Therefore, on the face of a body's comprehension, a milieu that establishes the periods of motions, that is, their beginning and ending points by binding to the motions of that body, is a space. All matter is included in this milieu. On the face of a body, which we accept as a matter localization, the space is a whole localization with all of its stones, soil, horses, cars, planes, and humans. Space is graded in infinitely minute nuances such as a meter square soil an individual stands on, the space he looks at by raising his head up, the city, the homeland, the continent and the world. Here, there are infinite space possibilities.
Yes, a very intense passage. I think, at this point, making a brief summary of the initial pages of the book may be a good idea. The initial milieu of the universe is the amorphous matter, then some original influences arrive at and initiate motion in amorphous matter, and spirits, which are super-universe truths, begin their applications in the matter universe from that moment on, first as a mechanical evolution, and later, as matter particles gradually get developed by becoming formed, deformed and transformed into ever-complex combinations, spirits continue evolving by learning matter more and more. This process eventually leads to the formation of atom, the proto-hydrogen atom and then, the hydrogen cosmos. As the matter combinations get more developed, their energy surpassed the hydrogen cosmos, and a vast and disarrayed high-energy fields emerge, and more original influences arrive at this high-energy field and assist each spirit to build a body from these high energies. And we call this body as the being, and from that moment on, each being builds a body from the cruder matter of the hydrogen realm, first of plants, then of animals, and as the last stage, of humans. And from the initial motion to here and now, all and everything has a milieu, and consequently, a space, and a motion within that space, and with the motion, an experience and a following development. This system is constructed so magnificently that by the inductive relations of spirit, being and body, each motion and movement of a body within that space manifests as a process to be actualized for the development of its being, and consequently, for the evolution of its spirit. We exist in a magnificent organization and organism that built for the evolution of the spirit, for the development of the being and for the experiences of the body. Imagine as wide as you can, soil and stone, rocks and mountains, planets and stars, galaxies and galaxy islands, the outer and greater space, all and everything in the matter universe is getting organized in this high-level energy structure, just as expressed in the title in this book. This is nature, this is divine order. And within this immense and multi-layered, interlaced and interactive organization each being does what it needs to do. Yes, we need to use our power of imagination in full force because as the book embarks on explaining the space in superficial time and space in spherical time, it reminds us. Explanations here are not to be applied on any object but to be imagined as described. Understanding the topic of space becomes easier. With the passages we will read soon, things will become more understandable.
Well, I'd like to try a metaphor. Do you remember the example of the pencil given at the initial pages of the book? Pencil is stable, it exists there, in that milieu as matter. It has potential but not in motion yet. When an influence arrives at it, as a flicking, it begins to roll and after a while, stops. So, this has a beginning and an ending. What happened? A material milieu and a material cycle of motion came together, yet these need to be connected by time and space. And this connection is made through its intention and purpose. We can think of this as valid for a human being's life as well. Our being forms a body in our mother's womb and we are born into this world. Our being continues to send its influences to our body and we live a life, let's say 40, 50, or 60 years, and then that life ends. All those motions in the material milieu are connected to the life plan of that human being, and from the moment of his or her conception in the womb to his or her last breath. The possibilities of space and the superficial time allows that human being a field of experiences to meet the needs of his or her being. In other words, the body provides the being with a space in the superficial time, and the being provides the spirit with a body in the spherical time. Well, we said that the factor binding motion, space and time is a target, a purpose. All the experiences a human being lives through his or her entire lifetime are bonded to a purpose outlined in the life plan. In the previous passages, the book had implied about the binding factor when we read about destiny. And in the following passages, we will read how all of these are connected to a truth from superuniverse, that is, to the principle of destiny.
I think, in the following weeks, as we read on more pages of the book, we will understand better that what we consider as fate or destiny is very different than the principle of destiny explained in the divine order and the universe, and as we understand more of this, some awareness about the fact that how vastly encompassing these concepts of time and space within this system. As we live our life, events happen, and as we learn to question things, we ask if this or that event, person, or outcome is our destiny or not. What we try to understand at the personal level is explained in this book at the transpersonal level, because even though it is called individual plan in this book, it is not personal plan. What I mean is for our beings reaching an intended target, we are born into this world as our being's vehicle in the hydrogen realm, and alongside us, there are, let's say 99 other human beings that are born, and they are important for our individual plan's actualization as much as we are important for the actualization of their individual plans. Together we progress, but sometimes we notice some of those human beings and sometimes we don't. Reading this book makes us aware that we exist within a grand and magnificent organization.
Some of our friends ask, more or less the same question. If we think time as energy, how can we accumulate or reserve it? Well, the divine order in the universe describes time as a mechanism, not as an energy. Therefore, we cannot accumulate time. Time expresses a mechanism that changes in relation to beings, persons, events, the subtlety of matter structure, etc. And the book describes time as the process between a beginning and an ending as a period. Consequently, a plant, a star, a season, whatever you can think of in the material systems of our matter universe is just a period. A period, sometimes as a cycle, or sometimes as a circle of a spiral. Again, time is not energy, hence, it cannot be accumulated. Time is a mechanism that can change and function in accordance with the perception. What can be a better question? Maybe, we can ask how can we accumulate comprehension? Or a much better question, how does the time mechanism help for comprehension's widening? This is my personal way of reaching an understanding. I ask such questions, because together with you, I try to understand the concept of time. Yes, I think this is clear now. Time is not energy, time is a functioning mechanism relative to the matter structures. Well, I need to remind our dear friends that if they don't read the whole book before starting to watch the videos in this series, things may be confusing for them because we progress by reading pages in this series, yet we, as commentators, frequently refer to previous and further pages of this book, and such further descriptions and explanations may be unfamiliar, hence, confusing for you. Once again, we must emphasize the importance of making efforts. If our dear friends make efforts to read the entire book, then our discussions each week may become more fruitful for them. And, then, we can, so to speak, accumulate more comprehension about the concepts, explanations, and descriptions given in this book. As we try to convey our understanding about the passages we read each week in this series, we make efforts. And this recording is a period, it has a beginning and an ending. On a material milieu, together we meet online, at a YouTube or Facebook platform. Together we activated something with our talking, our comments, our actions. You activated something else with your participation, comments, and questions. So, this is our space-time right now. Later, other human beings, as they watch this recording, they will become involved this specific period. And what is the intended result of all of these? During this period of time, during this process of making a video lecture, our purpose is to connect the dots in our minds, in other words, to widen our comprehensions, to reach a mutual understanding by binding our emotions, our time and our space with this intention. The intention is to widen our comprehensions.
Yes, that spark of understanding something completely, that aha moment. Yes, maybe such moments and flashes are felt momentarily, but still these have a lasting effect in our comprehension. This book is disclosed and shared with public in 2013. And since then, I don't know how many times I have read The Divine Order and the Universe. Yes, dear friends, this book reveals something new in each reading. In this reading and commentary series, we read it once more, this time, together with you, and as you may notice, we make new discoveries or become aware of new nuances, gain new insights. And there is the advice of the book in the passages we read this evening. Let us point that if the explanations here are not to be applied on any object but to be imagined as described, understanding the topic of space becomes easier. The plan tells us that you can only understand this knowledge in this way. There is no other way for you humans to get some meaning from spherical or perceptual time. Of course, we are just trying to build a model for understanding these. As we live in the superficial time, we cannot have experiences of other time comprehensions. Yes, we can only say that dreams, near-death experiences, hypnotic states etc. may be similar to experiences of spherical or perceptual time due to the subtler vibrations are involved in such experiences. Even if some of our dear friends couldn't read the entire book yet, I am sure, by now, they understand very well that we can make our own vibrations subtler and subtler. How? By thinking, by reflecting, by meditating, by pondering on our inner states, on the concepts we read in this book, with the intention of becoming able to understand more and more. As I said many times before, this period of time is productive, effective, and abundant for all of us. As we study and meditate on this book, it reveals itself more and more. Together with you, all of us make efforts to understand this book better and better. This is the intention of this reading and commentary series. This is the purpose of our weekly meetings online.
You said, thinking. Yes, thinking is a kind of active imagination, isn't it? As we think, we utilize subtle matter, and that subtle matter has an aim, a topic, and indeed, in this milieu of imagination, in that period of time, we bring out a space with that action of thinking. And the binding factor is our intention to connect a specific thought to a specific state or a state of comprehension. Binding these, connecting these. As we read in this passage, time and space are inseparable. This is such an occurrence that the manifestations of two great principles, which are connected to the original principle, manifest according to the various cosmoses of universe and adapt those cosmoses, with all of their events, realities, and comprehensions, to themselves. It is obvious that that binding we talk about is actually adaptation, or for a better term, interadaptation, interactive relation. As a reply to some questions coming from our dear friends, no, the manifestation of the things in the matter universe is not creation out of nothing. Manifestation of matter in the matter universe is the revealing of the possibilities of matter as it gets developed, first under the original influences, and later by the interactions between magnetic fields of beings. Another question: does the energy of spirit flow to matter by the mechanism of time?
Spirits are super-universe truths, however, the concept of time as explained in this book is an inter-universe structure. Because of this, we cannot think the time mechanism as a super-universe structure.
Well, if our dear friends remember, the spirits are never in direct contact with matter. The contact between a spirit and matter occurs through influences. So, instead of energy of spirit, it is better to say influences of spirit. Because spirit sends influences to matter, but not directly, the influences of spirits enter the matter universe as filtered through the unitary, the uppermost boundary of our universe. Yes, when these influences enter the universe and arrive at matter, the flux or flow of those influences bring out or manifest occurrences, experiences and appearances among matter particles and matter combinations, by utilizing the mechanisms of time and destiny. And when a spirit, by its influences, builds a being in the superworld realms, that being is in the service of its spirit until the end of the universe. Spirit, by sending influences, governs its being as that being goes through stages of development, from an atom to a plant, an animal and a human, and as that being, after completing the hydrogen cosmos, passes towards the plan of love and then the plan of duty. Spirit is never inside the universe. Yes, I hope this answer is clear for you, dear friends. Yes, dear Sister Oya. You accompanied and supported me this month. Thank you so much. I hope to see you soon in Izmir, at our public lectures. Next week, a new commentator will join me.
Yes, I leave my place to Mr. Konther. I am sure our dear friends will benefit from his comments and contributions. Well, thank you, dear Tülin. It was so good to be studying this book with you in this series. I am thankful for this possibility of sharing this knowledge with you. Next week, I will be among you, dear friends, watching the next video, and having new discoveries, new insights.
Thank you, dear friends, for your comments and questions. Your presence makes this reading and commentary series a lively and interactive study. We wish you a good evening and a productive week. See you all next week.